hamaze kuhagera ngira ngo twabareka mugakomeza gukurikira uko ibi biganiro bigiye kugenda.
We have people from across the continent and beyond. We have people from Ghana, Nigeria, Sierra Leone, Zimbabwe, Kenya. We have China, we have India, and of course we have Rwandans who are here. Some of the people here gathered this morning took a tour, a little bit of a brief tour of the country, where they were able to visit key liberation sites and learn a little bit about the story of liberation and the sacrifice and determination of thousands of men and women who have led us to where we are today. And
they saw a part of where some of us grew up.
Yes, sir. And they have a few questions I'd like to ask you, so with your permission, we'll proceed directly to the questions. Anyone has a question, please raise your hand, introduce yourself.
Thank you, Excellency. My name is Edmund Kajiri. I work for Kitty Press Rwanda. Your Excellency, I would like to ask you to take us through the 25-year journey. I would like you to take stock of the last 25 years and probably tell us how you started from scratch to where the country is today. And also, President, if you could tell us about Rwanda's foreign policy as it stands today in view of the country's relationship with neighboring countries and the way forward, especially regarding creating more friends like DRC, and also the situation between Rwanda and Uganda.
Probably that is the only question that we shall answer the whole day and nothing else. First of all, the first part, the journey is so long that if we went into it, I don't think we would do anything else. But 25 years have seen us go from scratch, almost nothing, if not just a total devastation, to something we see today of a country that is continuing to rebuild. And this rebuilding is not infrastructure, fine, we can see it, but the rebuilding of social fabric, which was completely destroyed. The family, Rwandan family, had been shattered. And so we had to build the sense of hope, belonging, the future, and again, even moving from having little or no resources to having to deal with continuing adversity. You see, we fought one war of liberation, and when we thought we were coming to some kind of end to that, we start another where we have to keep justifying, explaining everything we have to do. And it seems everything we had to do was not the right thing to do for others. So the rest of the world thought we had to do things differently or different things. And we thought what we were doing was the right thing we should be doing for ourselves. So there was always that conflict. In fact, that created not only a dilemma, it added to the weight of the problems we have had to face. So there was the war fighting, which started 1990, originating from the injustices and all kinds of stuff. Maybe thousands, hundreds of thousands of people denied their rights to their country, and many stateless Rwandans, others inside of Rwanda at the time, under harsh political conditions and other conditions. So that is what produced the origins of the war, which we had to fight. And so after that, I mean, towards the end, 1994, we had the tragic situation, which, by the way, it's only repeating myself, and I'm sure others know this, and has had to be repeated over and over, so that maybe we can make some headway in understanding our history. The 1994 genocide that happened wasn't the first of its kind. No. Only that this one went to a much higher extreme level, but otherwise in the 60s, mid-60s, 70s, there were always people targeted. A specific section of Rwandans is targeted for who they are, and so we had that. In fact, that's what produced many refugees in those years, the 60s and 70s. Those of us who fled the country when we were very young, there are many. Others old, happened to be lucky to escape the persecution that was going on at the time. So it's not something that erupted, as people would want to say, because of a certain event of a time and so on. It has been a long story about tragic situations in our country. So after the war, we started rebuilding, and we had to call upon everybody's contribution, which I think did happen. The RPF, the Rwandese Patriotic Front, at the center of it, working with others. There are many people of different backgrounds, even political backgrounds. Those who were mainly with in the country for all those years, and then those of us who had been outside. Many young people who were involved in the war, in fact, had been born outside of Rwanda, except a few of us. So from outside, joining what was inside, then we've been able to move together and build what we have today. So the foreign policy part is another long story. I think, let me first give a chance to others. We might come to that later on.
Excellency, it's a pleasure to see you again. I'm Pranjal Sharma from India. I find it fascinating that you talked about the social fabric of Rwanda, but I also notice in the last few years you are also bringing the continent together, both through the Eastern African community and as your role at the African Union. And I think that's a fantastic journey for the continent to have to become self-reliant. How important is this, and how challenging is this to also build an economic fabric for self-reliance?
That's a very good question. And Rwanda, we never saw ourselves as an island, as a country that has had its own problems and maybe trying to find solutions, and it ends there. we are part of a much bigger family, which is our continent. Rwanda is part of this African continent, and it's not an issue of saying, we can make a choice of this or that. It is what it is. It's a fact. So we have to deal with this reality that we are part of the East African region and much wider the continent as it is now 1.2 billion people, almost the same size as India's. So and in fact, we also see it that if we don't address our problems while we connect with others who have their own problems they have to deal with, but also in that connecting, in that sharing of what we have to deal with, we enhance our capacity because there are also problems that cut across. I mean, it's just an obvious fact to say that, for example, if you take Rwanda, you'll find, if you go even deeper into the history, many people of Rwandan heritage are in Rwanda, but are in other parts, whether you want to look at it in terms of the colonial period, the drawing of borders, and so on and so forth. So the best way to reconnect and tap into this relevance of people getting back together is not by doing away with the borders as they were drawn, whatever injustice you may call it, but through social, economic, political integration, working together, then you make these divides actually irrelevant. And people start working together, and when they work together, then the common problems that affect all of us will be addressed more easily than, well, we are not where we want to be yet, not even maybe close, but we are really on the journey to that point where Africa can cooperate. East, West, North, South, Central can keep working together and making this continent what it should be, because of the many, not only problems and the solutions that cut across for our problems, but even aspirations. The aspirations of the Africans in the North and the South and the West and East, they are the same. They all strive to achieve one thing, prosperity. And in fact, if you look at what happens, the rest of the world, they approach Africa as Africa, not... it's very interesting because they approach it as Africa, but then divide it for easy management of... so it is one thing, they want to say, oh, this is... That's why you find the narrative is almost one. It's one narrative about Africa. It's this place where everything goes wrong, where we have to go and help and do something good for them and feed them and sometimes praise them so that we can use them and, different things like that. And of course, in the end, exploit them. Yes, that's what it is. So it's one, it's divided for ease of management by outsiders. But other it is one. So the good point you are making, while we try, you can imagine, you divide Africa, and then later on, you divide Rwanda, which is almost so tiny that when you divide it, I don't know what you remain with. Yes, the small parts of a small part is too small. But Rwanda suffered this division, among ourselves, which speaks to the stupidity of our politics. I don't want, in many cases where people may have justification and the right to blame outsiders who historically divided us, but I don't want to stay there. I want to look at ourselves and say, well, they divided us and we accepted it. So I start from that point that we accepted being divided, and the consequences we reaped from that are obvious. So in trying to reverse that situation, I don't think anyone would be served well by wanting to take the blame somewhere else. You take responsibility for it, and then, so as we try to bring unity to our people, it makes sense, and it works. It has worked for us, and it makes sense that you take it to another level of the bigger part or world that affects you, which is our continent. That's why it is relevant that we integrate, we unite Africa, and try and make a sense of ourselves, and then deal with the rest of the world as partners, as not as subordinates or second rate, or which has continued to be the case. And I hope I can see many of you are much younger than me, so forget about our mistakes. Try and do your part and see if we can improve our situation.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, we take another question. Vicky?
Hello, everyone. Hello, President Kagame. I'm from Sierra Leone, and for the longest time, we always looked to Rwanda as a point of reference because we feel like, we have kind of this shared history with civil war and civil conflict. And so you trend in Sierra Leone in terms of leadership. And so my question is that what we really struggle with is national cohesion. Every time we have elections, it's like we forget that we're Sierra Leoneans and it's the North. And they aren't really divisions that outsiders created, but it's more so that politicians tend to use it for votes. And so we just had an election last year, and we're still kind of trying to find a national platform. And so what I really want to understand is what specific programs, or what did you really do? 2 or 3 things that you feel like you implemented in Rwanda that got Rwandans feeling like we're all, it's so neat. So I'm looking outside, I'm like, did everybody wake up and just say, we're going to be neat, all of us? Nobody, we're just going to be correct people. How do you get everybody united behind the cause once you do decide what the cause is? Because I think at least as a Sierra Leonean, that's what we're struggle with. We're not yet united around the cause, but I don't know how is it school? I don't know what it is. So I would like to hear from you.
Yeah. Well, that's a very important and very broad question. But I'll try and say, for Rwanda, we've learned from our tragic history. When bad things have happened to you, well, there are 2 ways to go. Either you are left broken, and therefore later dead and may not recover, or just keep surviving. That's one way to go. The other way to go is learn lessons, be hardened by that in your thinking and in your action, and say, you know what? I have had it, I have survived it, but I can find within myself some sense of purpose and move on and do better and be better. And then in that process, you keep identifying some of the things that can help you to keep improving. But that is facilitated by two things, again. People keep talking about leadership. Yes, leadership matters. Leadership is, what is it that leadership does to actually address the problem at hand? That is key. So that those who will be in the leadership, may be many, or the numbers will increase, and there will be others who are looking up to those they have known as leaders and say, what is it that they are telling us to do, if it addresses our problems, and maybe others also join and become leaders in their own right with the time, depending on what level. But the second part, which again relates to the leadership, is how do you change people's thinking? How do you introduce a new mindset that goes with addressing the problem? Because there must be a problem. What is it? Do you understand it? But you're talking about people. So what is it that you need to be communicating to these people so that they understand that if they want to move in a better and different direction, they need to be thinking, not only thinking differently, but doing things differently. So that has to, so, and again, it falls on the shoulders of leaders to keep saying, you know what, this is what we did that created problems for us. This is from that understanding what I think we could be doing so that we move in the opposite direction. And in between there lies one thing. You've got to do something. You can't just believe in good things and, you know, talk about good things or things will happen and remains at that level. No, you must do something. And that something you do will give certain results, maybe, and they will help as a demonstration. Say, oh, you mean if you do this, actually, this is what comes out. This is my experience. Then when people start experiencing change in their lives, in these other aspirations I was talking about, that actually they are getting closer and closer and moving in the right direction, then you start actually getting practical results, things that make the difference. Since you used one story of, say, how we have a clean city, clean countryside, and so on. The story starts with we're having a conversation, for example, in the cabinet of ministers, maybe close to 15 years now. And the idea comes up and says, all of us, where we have come from, where we live, we used to see our mothers, relatives, different kinds of people cleaning the homestead. You wake up very early morning, each one is going to do different things. Either the young one is going to school, or the other is going to graze cattle, or the other is going to fetch water, or whatever thing. But you also found there are those who woke up so early to try and keep the home clean. It has many implications. has to do with the hygiene. And also the sense of pride that even when you are poor, you're not living in piles of dirt, but that's not where you belong. So that goes where it belongs, and you stay in a clean. So, and we said, suppose we elevated this home to a bigger thing. This is a country, this is a city. And to achieve that, do we need anybody's money to clean, your homestead, to clean the environment, to clean around? Do we need to go mobilizing for funds from donors? No. All we need to mobilize is just our thinking. And explaining the rationale to these people, everyone who is going to participate, and say, look, it's like drinking clean water. When you want to drink water, you look for clean water. You don't just go for any water. So we need a clean country. We don't have to be buried under the dirt all over the place. So that's how it starts. And the moment you can see, you have, it starts with the thinking and then action. But that is what happens in everything else that creates that change that you want in a society. It's the thinking, it's the rationale, it's the action, and then the organization of how to do it. And if you have really completed the circle. So, we may even sit here and think it is simple, but maybe it is. But on the other hand, everybody else you can think of has the capacity to think like that. But why don't we get things happening like that everywhere? So, and this is why I said the difference comes from whether you are able to do something. You do it. Because we all might understand the same thing, the rationale, but somehow we don't, not all of us are going to find it in ourselves to start doing something that takes us where we want to be. So that is something I can't explain. That's how it is. But we can keep talking about it, and people need to keep it, because the more you discuss it, the more you show the benefit, the rationale, and behind it, and so on. I think you keep creating a bigger number of those who understand and say, this idea makes sense. Forget even about the person behind it who makes sense. Concentrate on the idea itself. Does the idea make sense? It doesn't matter who brings the idea for me. It's the idea you look at. Because sometimes people may even think it's a good idea, but because of someone who introduced it, they are drawn away from it. And they lose the big thing. So what we have tried to do, therefore, is to keep thinking, working together, and bringing out these ideas we think. Even some of them not tested anywhere else before, but things you say, no, but this might actually address it. Then you should have no fear in even experimenting and trying something. But of course, I know the story of Sierra Leone, which in many ways is similar to ours. And by the way, the president is coming to visit us soon. We are happy to have the president visit, and we share experiences, solutions to our problems. It's always going to come up with, take us a step forward. But the message to anyone is, one, be confident. Trust that you have this in yourself to change yourself or working with others to change the bigger thing, which might be the country and so on and so forth. The second, before you go looking elsewhere for a solution, do that. Find it, try to find it from within you. Then later on, when you feel exhausted or think you have exhausted all your resources, then you can say, no, but why don't I work with somebody else? Or you could still start from there, but starting with yourself. And even ask, this history of ours has made us wiser in many ways, the tragic history, because we keep asking questions. We ask ourselves questions. Why? Why we? Why? For example, on the other hand, I always publicly have told our people here, so you see, we receive aid. We get a lot of aid, which has helped us, to uplift, take us to some level where we can start adding our own effort. But I keep asking myself, and I have raised this with our own people. I say, do you imagine that this money we are given to build schools, do this, do that, is coming from other citizens of other countries, from the taxes they pay to their governments? And there is always a big portion of that supposed to come and support you, which is a good thing. But the question for me is, if that is happening, do you want to keep that happening forever? Do you want to live forever as a country on other countries' taxpayers' money? Is it something that connects with you and with the quest for your dignity? Is it something you would be proud of? You would stand there and say, I get so much from other people like me, from Europe, from US, from Russia, China, from wherever, India, and so on. Is it something you feel you connect with in your pride? No, but you can say, first you have to start, you've got to start with being realistic. Yes, you need help. Where you started from is a bad place. Somebody who has more can help you. But quickly your mind has got to be switching to saying, you know what? I am going to use this aid, these resources, properly to build foundation, to build capacity, to build so that in another 10 years, in another 15, 20, doesn't matter how fast, but the faster the better, if you can. So that I can stand up proud that I am in charge of my own well-being. It is, and then the question is, even ask yourself and even actually feel angry about it. What? Rwanda. I know a lot about why we are where we are. That's okay. But the question should always be, Rwandans, what is the difference between Rwandans and others, say, from any of the countries you may pick in Europe? Well, those who believe in a God, is it really that God favored these ones and against us, and we should resign to it and say, okay, this is what God determined? But I just can't sleep comfortably with this whole idea that we are a people, we are a country that will always live based on the mercy of others. Why? Why others? Why others? Why not you? Why not you living on what you can provide for yourself? This is a bigger question that we need to keep. So too much of what, but it is because of the good and broad question you brought up. So, all right.
President, we'll take a question from Mami.
Oh, thank you. Hi, Mr. President. My name is Mami Ajay. I'm from Ghana. And I read recently that the members of the ECOWAS state had agreed to a single currency. And I was wondering, being the president of the AU, do you think that's something that's viable for the entire continent? And what do you even think about the ECO currency that the members of the ECOWAS state have decided to use?
Well, I can already sense that it is a good thing, even without knowing the details. Why? Because don't some countries have actually a common or single currency, only that it is managed from outside? You know what I'm talking about? And yet they have lived with it and have gone on and on. Sometimes over the years I have learned to be diplomatic. Sometimes I don't name names and let it pass for people to find out. But you know that happens. So if people have lived with that for so long, I think bringing it closer to them and owning it is certainly going to serve them much better, even before we talk about other details. The others may be technical details, but that principle alone, you've already made a huge step by saying, instead of having my economy being determined from outside, or my currency and how it operates to feed the economy and so on and so forth, being determined from outside, I am now the one in charge. It's a huge step. The rest is how to manage that process and looking at the technical issues that have to be taken care of, or even the political issues, of course, which is going always to provide the environment for this thing to work or not work. So my answer is I salute them for doing that. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. President. Take a question from here.
Good morning, President Kagame. I'm Mariam Soumaré, journalist for Jeune Afrique. Going back to Rwanda, I was part of the Liberation Tour this morning, and we have visited the former headquarters of the RPF. And I was wondering if you could tell a bit about what this place represents for the country, for the party, and for you as a leader. Like, what importance does it have for you?
Well, it is a historical landmark. It is part of a long journey from the beginning of the struggle to where we are now. We lived there, we survived there, we fought and, won battles, best there. So it has that significance as one of those landmarks that build up to this point of the long journey we have gone through. As I said, the one word among others I used, survived there. The fact that we survived there, or from there, then I think it says the rest. That's why we're able to reorganize, we're able to launch. What was really initially to launch other than fighting from there and organizing from there, all kinds of things, it's where also, I think you are talking of Umulindi? Yes. The two things. On one part is where we launched what was supposed to be a process of forming a transitional government that was supposed to be there as a result of the Arusha peace process, which never happened. It's also where we started from when we launched the operations to fight back, and when genocide started and so on. So it has that significance.
Thank you, Mr. President. Is there a question from there?
Thank you. Your Excellency, thank you for hosting us in your beautiful and very clean country. I'm from Zimbabwe, and you visited us a couple of times. My question is around perception. We are trying to rebuild our country. We're trying to rebuild perception. When it comes to our economy, when it comes to tourism, we want people to have trust in us again. And it starts with our African counterparts before we even extend it to the world and the Paris Club and all of that. What would you say as advice in terms of rebranding as a country that also had to go through it, where people say, can I visit Rwanda? Is it safe? What would I get out of it? What would you say for Zimbabwe? Because you have commented at time, even you visiting our country is support, and we appreciate that. But what would you say we need to work on to position ourselves in a place where we still can attract the tourists we need, we can still get the FDI we need and the support that we need to rebuild 37 years later?
Yeah, perception will be there. You can't avoid it. That is something we share with many people. And mainly it is this perception that actually portrays you in a way that you may not be. By the way, we still suffer from that ourselves. There are still many who wonder or don't even fully believe or don't know that the country has changed. The moment you mention Rwanda, there are those who still think it is 94 or the situation after that. Even this moment, we still have that. Or, it's very interesting, there are those who have even been here, who have seen what is here, or can even compare what is now and what was in the past. And they still say, is this real? Isn't there something underneath? There is always that. There is always, drawing, being drawn to the negative. And so, explaining your point of Zimbabwe, where I'm using my own example, we know that that is there. So don't be discouraged by it. Just be educated by it. And the first point you get educated about is, you need to work hard to change the perception. You can't bribe your way through it. You can't just sweet talk, some people and things, and even if they say, okay, we agree with you, and you think things will be fine. No. You keep doing your best. You keep, if it is, of course, countries are governed the way you govern, the different institutions, the way they operate, the way the people of your own country feel about what is happening, will always come out. And before you even convince anybody from outside, so that they don't have wrong perception about you, convince your own people. Make sure they are with you in saying, no, look, whatever you are saying, we feel there is change. So concentrate there. Concentrate on making sure that your people are involved, they are benefiting, they can themselves push back on this story of the wrong perception. But that means also that it is going to be built on tangible things. Yes. If the country is hungry, if people have nothing to eat, they will tell people that they have nothing to eat. and so when the outsiders are saying it, don't go against them and say, no, why are you saying that my country is starving? When actually people are starving, they are starving. So, and they have, but if you tell me, the outsiders say, no, the country, the people of Rwanda are actually starving, when the people of Rwanda are saying, no, we are not starving, I won't even have any fight with you saying that the country is starving. I'll just ignore you and keep. Eventually, you will get tired of telling wrong stories about me because my people will be there to disprove you. And it is what matters anyway. Yes. But it's twofold. Let's say with Zimbabwe, because it is a recent case. And as you rightly said, it's the reason we have connected with Zimbabwe, we have come there and visited, we have said things about, to sort of say, give them time. They need time. What they do with time is a different issue now. And that's what falls back to the responsibility of the Zimbabweans themselves or the government. We tell people, it's not a switch on or off situation. You can't just switch it from, flip the switch from one side to another and things have changed. No, we don't have that kind of thing. So that's why we say, whatever change has happened, has happened. There is a change in Zimbabwe. Second, the problems they have, or like any other country, cannot be resolved overnight. Certain things have got to be done by the Zimbabweans themselves. Well, they've got to do these things in a certain way. But still that falls on the shoulders of the Zimbabweans. And to prove that point, that they are going to do it and they are going to change. So for us, it is to say, we can be with you and work with you and share whatever we can from outside. But it's the responsibility of Zimbabweans, as there has been of Rwandans when it comes to Rwanda, and it is of others, no question about it. Then the third was to say, give them time. Or even allow them the tools. If you are saying, no, I want you to change, okay, we say time, but at the same time, they are under sanctions. And when you are under sanctions, you are being denied the tools to apply to actually change the situation. So you can't be the same person who has applied the sanctions and then you say, I want you to change in a very short time, when part of the change requires what actually is sanctioned. So it doesn't make it, there's no sense in that. So this is what plays out there in the arguments outside there, which all of us can contribute to one or the other, but the Zimbabweans are irreplaceable in dealing with their own countries, yes. And it has to be practical. I hope all of us understand, even for us, we want to show the results. We don't want anybody to give us credit for nothing. Yes, we want to do something and convince our own people, later on convince these outsiders or sometimes who will never be convinced. Yes, but at the moment you are with your people, it's a done deal. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. President. Is there a question from Colin?
Thank you very much. My name is Collins. I write for the New Times Daily. During the liberation struggle and the period after, much was asked of the young people at the time, either as soldiers or in other capacities, and it took a toll, and it became the key element of their lives at that point. From your generation, what do you ask of young people in this time? At this point, what does your generation ask for of young people? Thank you. Sacrifices or otherwise?
You see, just make the right contribution. Sacrifice may extend it to some point that worries people, that they've got to give too much away for something. But there is always a contribution to make to the well-being of yourself, your country, and so on, by and through participation. You know, even for those people who hate politics and say, no, for me it's politics, I don't like it. Well, you don't like it, but it is with you wherever you go. And you want you know, it affects wherever, by the way, even if you leave your own country and go some other place, you are only in a different politics of another place. So it affects you. So but for me, I would prefer actually to be affected or to be in politics that I can make a contribution to. Yes, instead of being in a place where politics affects me and I have nothing to do about it. That's what I mean. So therefore, go back to the word which I didn't want so much to use. The sacrifice is, don't jump too fast to this you think is the easy way out for yourself. For example, you may be educated, you have a good job, let's say here in Rwanda, and you are, then things may go wrong that in your understanding you don't like. Instead of saying, no, so let me rush to run to some other place and get another job and live there and forget about this. What the sacrifice might be is to say, well, here I am. There's something here that I think is not right. Then you start thinking of how do I contribute to making sure that this thing doesn't continue. Because it affects me, it affects others. How do I contribute? Maybe you are with another colleague who thinks the same or differently. You get together and say, but there is this problem. How do we contribute to it? Then it goes to another person and another person. But you have to stay to deal with that problem. Because you don't expect that somebody else will come to fix that problem without you. And why without you is the question. So that is, for me, the sacrifice I would ask of young people. And there will always be problems anywhere. This is what I see sometimes when people are questioning you about problems in your country. I always feel like saying, what happens in your country? What is it? And when I look around, there isn't a single country in the world where there are no problems. So, what why does somebody else get so much interested in my problems to the point that they want to cut my finger off for it? Yes. Why don't you, you know? And in fact, in many cases, you find my problems are similar to the problems those people have. So who holds them responsible from outside? So I want to be treated the same way. You can point out my problem. I have no problem with that. It's even a good thing. Maybe I may not be seeing it initially, and when you say it and point it out to me, then I start seeing that actually there's a problem I have to address. That's fine. I really appreciate that. But you can't make it a habit. First of all, to keep, poking a finger in my eyes for my problems, and even ready to add your own problems to mine. Yes, I want to stay with mine and struggle with that. We must also be reasonable people who take full responsibility for ourselves, isn't it? Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. President. Take a question from Kagawa.
By the way, sorry, one thing that I should have mentioned, which young people shouldn't wait to be told what they can do. The starting point is keep trying to find what your responsibilities that you can do on your own. Probably if you discover it, it works better than when you've been told by somebody else, right? So start from there. Young people, as people grow up and take responsibility in different ways, it's a matter of saying, keep asking this question. What is it that I can do to improve my life, my families, my countries? What is it? What is it? How do I do it? With who? How? Then as you go along that, then you'll also be receiving this you are asking me. Maybe messages will be coming. So young people, it has become a song, young people, the future, so the leaders of today and tomorrow, okay. But let's translate that into something, isn't it? Yeah.
Murakoze nyakubahwa Perezida wa Repubulika, nitwa Jean Pierre Kagabo, nkorera RBA. Iyo ugiye hirya no hino mu Rwanda muri iki gihe twizihiza kimwe cya kane cy'ikinyejana u Rwanda rwibohoye, abanyarwanda baba bafite imbamutima nyinshi zo gusobanura aho bavuye naho bageze. Nyakubahwa Perezida, nkamwe mwayoboye uru rugamba, nashaka kumva namwe ku giti cyanyu, ese uru ni rwa Rwanda mwatekerezaga cyangwa se nta kirakorwa dutegereza ibindi byinshi, ariko se abanyarwanda bakwiye kwitwara bate, ni iki bakora kirenze icyo bakoze muri imyaka 25 ishize kugira ngo u Rwanda rugeraho rwifuza? Nsoza nyakubahwa Perezida, ibyicaro turimo bifite igisobanuro cyihariye mu rugamba rwo kwibohora. Aha hantu turi ku gasongero k'inteko ishinga amategeko, muhavuga iki nkamwe mwari muyoboye uru rugamba? Murakoze Perezida.
Mu myaka 25 ishize mbona hari ibintu byinshi byakozwe, ndetse bimwe bikagerwaho abantu batari bazi ngo barabigeraho. Niba byanashoboraga no kuba biruse ibyo twagezeho ubu, nicyo cyari icyifuzo, ariko ubwo kubera impamvu ziba zitandukanye, ntabwo iteka buri gihe umuntu agera ku cyifuzo uko yabyifuzaga n'igihe yabyifurizagamo. Ariko iyo ubona uri mu rugendo rwiza rugenda rufite aho rukugeza, ibyo nabyo urabyishimira. Waba uri kuri 80% ukavuga uti Imana ishimwe. byaba biri ugahora mbese upima ureba noneho unibaza utari ko impamvu ntageze kuri biriya nashakaga ngo ngere kuri 90 cyangwa 90 n'ibirenze ku ijana niki icyo bigatuma usubira inyuma noneho kugira ngo indi ntambwe ugiye gutera urebe ibyo wakosora ariko muri rusange navuga ko aho tugeze mu myaka 25 ari mu nzira y'ibyo twifuzaga ku rwego runini ariko sinavuga ngo buri kintu cyose nk'urugero niba twaragabanyije ubukene bw'abanyarwanda niyo byaba kubigabanya ku 10% cyangwa ukabugabanyaho 20%, ku 10% ari bo dushigaje gusa byaba ari byiza cyane wenda turi kuri 25% basigaye b'abakene cyangwa 30%, urumva ko twagabanyije ibyo ari byo byose ariko icyifuzo ni ukutagira abakene ni ugukomeza rero gushyiraho umurego kugira ngo noneho tugabanye abakene niba ari ikibazo cy'umutekano hari umutekano dufite cyangwa ntawo dufite turashaka ikibazo dufite kijyanye n'umutekano giteye gite kiva he kigera he twagabanya dute umutekano muke waba uriho mu gice runaka cy'igihugu cyangwa ariko byose ugiye ushyira hamwe usanga biri hejuru ku byo twifuzaga ku majyambere y'abanyarwanda ku mutekano w'abanyarwanda no gutera imbere kw'abanyarwanda ni inzira rero nziza turimo aha turi nyine nk'uko nigeze kubivugaho gato hari abantu bagomba kuza bakajya muri leta y'ubumwe yavuye muri masezerano yarusha impande zombi cyangwa zitandukanye nyinshi kujya hamwe bagashyiraho leta noneho iziba icyuho ku buryo tuzageraho amatora azaba ibyo ntibyaba rero ariko bijya gupfa abantu bamwe RPF bari bageze hano mu mujyi bari hano muri ahangaha turi muri iyi nyubako twari turi niho abantu bacu bari kandi yari nka inyubako y'inteko ishinga amategeko niyo bari baduhaye ariko habanje kubaho impaka ndende bashaka kugira ngo abantu bacu baze hano ngo barindwe na icyo gihe ngira ngo yari yitwaga Menware ingabo za Loni turavuga tuti ingabo za Loni ntabwo twanze ko zigira uruhare rwabo ariko byaba byiza ko twakwirinda ubwacu natwe tukongeraho ku mbaraga za Loni nibwo haje rero abasirikare barinda abo bantu bacu hanyuma aho iby'amasezerano bipfiriye leta itakigiyeho biturutse ku ngoma yariho icyo gihe leta ya Habyarimana n'abandi bari bafatanije hanyuma ibyabaye havuyemo intambara aba rero n'abari bari hano baje baherekeje abagomba kujya muri leta icyo gihe nibo barwanya intambara nyinshi hano zo kurinda abo bantu bacu ariko no kurinda n'abandi bahungiraga hano icyo gihe hanyuma hagiye hashamikiraho n'ibindi bitero byagiye bijya ahandi gukiza abantu cyangwa kurwana n'interahamwe n'abasirikare babicanye icyo gihe.
Thank you, Mr. President. Take a question from Shinra.
Kosi. So my name is Lu from China's Xinhua News Agency. So Rwanda has been experiencing fast economic development over the past 2 decades. So after experience fast development, has the government now started facing some new bottlenecks of economic development, and which the government hasn't met before? what are these, and how is the government dealing with them? Thanks.
Yeah. Well, we are happy that we've made decent development in terms of growing our economy. Our economy has grown decently, and because of different prudent measures we take, we always try to balance what we have in terms of resources and what we can do with those resources, where we get them from and what we can do. We've always been prudent about it. And we have found that, for example, even our domestic revenues have been rising very fast. And we have also been getting support, money from outside. We try to increase our exports, but we also get money from other channels, like I mentioned earlier, in terms of official development assistance that we have got from different partners. So everything has been on an upward trend. We've been, whether it is, as I said, domestic revenues and the institutions we work with, the multilateral institutions, sometimes have given us money on the basis of good performance, and even when they have promised us support, when you have utilized it well and made it productive, and they give us more resources again, which we invest and keep going forward. So I think so far, so good. And even when you look at how we've been reducing poverty arising from the investments we made in and with our people, the progress continues. I think the main challenge we have is not a new thing that has come up because of this growing of our economy and different sectors growing. The challenge we have is that of the flow of resources. I said we get resources, but it is always never enough. You always feel you needed more, to invest more and get more from that. So the main challenge is just to make sure that we sustain this growth that we have been registering, and therefore consolidate the good gains we have made and make sure that we don't fall back on any of these things. That is really the main thing. We just need to be doing more of what we have been doing, not less. We haven't reached a point where we are saying, no, what we have been doing is saturated. Now we need to find something else. No, on everything, it's a good progress, but we are not where we want to be, so we can only hope to sustain this growth and keep getting more out of the activities, the economic activities the country is involved in.
Thank you, Mr. President. With your permission, we'll take the two last questions before we conclude. Take a question from Opa.
Maybe 2, 3, 4.
You're so generous. Thank you so much. Your Excellency, it's really an honor to be here. My name is Opal Tameti. I am a human rights advocate as well as a writer. I'm Nigerian descent, but born and raised in the United States. And I come here today thinking about some conversations that I've been having with a lot of friends who are also of African descent, but maybe living in the US or living in Europe or abroad somewhere. And oftentimes we're reflecting about how much we love, our home countries, or how much we are looking at leaders like yourself that are doing really incredible work, and there's so much growth and so much opportunity here. And so I wonder, what is the role of the diaspora? What do you see as the role of the diaspora in this new chapter in Rwanda? And then I have a second question for you, and that is, we see you all as kind of a moral leader. I think, given all that Rwanda has been through and the challenges and the growth and really persevering and overcoming so much, we see you all as having a lot of knowledge, a lot of wisdom, and really being kind of a moral compass of sorts. And there is a lot of concern, I think, that's coming from the international community around a number of issues that are rising around the world. But I think so many of us are looking at Sudan right now and, just with a lot of concern and just wondering what is the AU going to do, or what could they do, or what other activities could take place by other African states in regards to that.
I get it. Now, for diaspora, let me say, for us, two kinds of diaspora. There are those, particularly Rwandan diaspora, people who have lived out and made their lives there, and so on and so forth. So we have always reached out to them. We want them to be part of the rebuilding process here in their own country, in our country. So we give them priority and attention. But there are even, in fact, other Africans who are out there in diaspora of different countries in our continent, whom we say, if you ever want a place you can come and work and belong to, you are welcome. That always happens. In fact, we have something we call Rwanda Day. We've been to many countries in Europe. We've been to the US, Canada, we've been to China, we've been to, well, there's a big community of Rwandans. When we invite Rwandans to come and to have a discussion, what they think they could do for the country, what we could do for them or with them, wherever they are, I have seen that over time a number of Africans from other countries have actually come and participated, which for us is a very good thing. And from different countries on our continent, they come and participate in this Rwanda Day. So, in fact, it was interesting. So many of them, I remember there is a lady who showed up. I think she's from Mali or Burkina Faso. I think she was from Mali. I was always surprised, and when they came to this time for questions, she should always be having a question to ask. And every time I found she's the other lady who was in another Rwanda Day in a different place, and she told us she's proud to be Malian, but for the story of Rwanda, which she has connected with, she's very proud to associate with Rwanda. In fact, later on she asked for citizenship, and we have offered her that citizenship. But that is just to say we have even welcomed the other Africans to be part of us. And in fact, that's how we even waived the visas for all Africans. They come here freely, and we only insist that they should be law-abiding Africans. That's all. If you are law-abiding, you are with us anytime. So there are other Africans of African heritage, or African Americans, African whatever other country. We welcome them as well. But for us, we approach it in a way that we are saying, we welcome you. Be free to associate with our country, come and invest, come and do whatever you want to do, we will welcome you. That's all we do, because we have to leave it to people to make their choice. So we have tried to create that environment that is encouraging for whoever decides to be able to come and work with us. And even live here. Yes. In fact, on that particular thing, the laws governing that, whether it is a visa question or residence or whatever, we have made it liberal and open for particularly the African or African people of African origin. Now, the point you've brought up, which is a very interesting one and deserving a lot of attention, is that of Sudan. See, everyone seemed across the world seemed to be very excited that change had come, and not only just come anyhow, but a change that came about because of pressure of the citizens, of the people of that country. When it comes to that, you don't have many questions to raise about it. When it has come from the people and you see it's a popular thing with the people, then whatever reservations you may have about it, you tend to really immediately side with that. So that is how people approach it at the beginning. Much as it was done by the army, by removing, General Bashir or whatever. But you could see it came as a result of the pressures that were there by the people going on the streets and demanding, Then it has come to a point where the people who pressured for this change to happen feel that it is being taken away from them. It's not what they wanted or expected. Again, this is the message you see on the street. I'm just really saying things from what I'm even reading, like anyone can read from outside. It's not an inside information I have, or this wrong or this right. No, I'm just even interpreting what I am seeing and what everybody else is seeing. And when it is like that, then there is a problem, a big problem to address. The problem to address is, how do we steer this process back to where it should be? Meaning to be closely associated and to be benefiting the people of Sudan. Yes. You can't take it away from them and then it is something good or reasonable or logical or what should happen. I don't think so. Even if the military who are in charge, who took over, would be saying all kinds of things, it's up to them to convince the world that what they are doing is the interest of these very people there. And when you start seeing that they are being shot and killed and arrested, and then something is going wrong. Yes, and this needs to be, and for it to be corrected, you start with the people who are claiming to be in charge. And this is the military that is there. They have to be the ones to be dealt with directly, to say, tell us, what do you stand for? If you have started going against these people who led this to happen, then what are you actually doing? For who? Yes. So the AU will be raising these questions. In fact, the AU has been raising these questions. I'm sure even in the meeting where we'll be going much as for something else, we soon have an AU meeting in Niger, in Niamey. It was for launching of the CFTA that has already been, it was mainly for that and few other issues to do with the reform process that has been going on for the AU. But I'm sure inevitably that will come up. And these questions will come up because, as you know, the African Union has already also taken certain steps. For example, of now, the Sudan is under pressure. It's to explain this point. Otherwise, some of the pressures or measures that have been put in place might be scaled up. The details of which I wouldn't go into now, but it will come from the broader discussion. But the question is around this. What do you stand for? If you started killing people, the very people who were demanding this to happen and they are not being brought in. Recently I saw that they were saying that they are going to reach some agreement. Hopefully they do. The sooner the better for all of us, for them first of all, and for everyone concerned about the situation. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. President. Take a question from Albert.
Mr. President, Datsimburgo Albert. 25 years, Excellency. Africa, at a time when you started a struggle, hadn't really experienced, since the independence days, models of states managed for the people, for progress, for development. And historical circumstances, of course, these were other days. Your struggle started at the end of an era, almost, the end of the Cold War, the end of not being in a situation where you had to go left and right. And ever since this 25 years, you are one of the only one that come out with tangible results. And today, I understand that everyone is actually asking you, how did you do it? Wherever you go, the real question is, what is your secret? And yet, from watching those events from all of that time, that brings me more to a question, is there a plan in the transmission of memory? Because actually, that is exactly what I see from my colleagues from other countries also, like, what was your journey and how are you going to transmit it and share with the rest of us? Because in Africa, that is exactly what we are aspiring to.
Well, the first question is, the answer for me is, what is the secret? The answer is there is no secret. And also that I don't happen to be the only one in anything. It's always going to be with others, with the people.
That's part of the secret.
It's an open secret, because when you're with others, it's an open secret. But the thinking should be that. When you think or you operate and knowing that you are not alone or you are not the only one, but rather whatever you get will be on the basis of your effort and other people's effort put together. I think that becomes the answer. So, in fact, you see, for whatever you may say of the progress we have made, I don't think we have even made enough progress. That is my other point. I don't think it has ever been enough, or it is enough. We just need to keep going and keep doing more and better. And it's almost a daily thing. We shouldn't feel there's a point where we feel we've reached, we've arrived and let's relax. That's the whole thing. And the more people that join that direction, that path, the better for everyone. So that is the best way to do it. Keep going. Even when you are doing well, be worried of something. Yes. Don't ever feel all is well and that's it. No. All is well, but always be worried about something. Be worried that you haven't done enough, or be worried that what you have done well can slide back. So there's always something to do all the time. Keep going. At least that is the sort of philosophy that I embrace, and I know there are others who should be doing the same. So we will always try and for 25 years you look back, you find whatever gains you have made, it's on that basis, and we hope we can keep going.
Thank you, Mr. President. Taking a question from Clément.
Many thanks. My name is Clément Ulinjimana. I work with Reuters. Mr. President, recently the Congolese president said he wants to eliminate all rebel groups in Congo, and he said he'd call for neighbors to help with Rwanda help. And Mr. President, it's a quarter of a century when you liberated this country. People still love you, but 25 years, don't we ever think of maybe some time to say, no, let me leave it to others? When is that time? Thank you.
For the part of Congo and what the president of Congo said, President Felix Tshisekedi, we will rejoin yesterday. So we have we've been waiting. And I am glad that we have a person there saying he wants to work with the neighbors to get rid of this problem, because this problem has been there for too long. And it affects Congo, it affects the neighbors, it affects all of us. So there is no point in sitting with that problem or allowing that problem to stand in the way of the progress we should be making. So I'm happy really that that is the way the president of Congo is going, and that's what he's thinking about. On the other part, I didn't get the question very well. He said, leaving something to somebody else? Sorry?
Leaving the office to someone else.
Yeah, there are many who want it. So they have got to work hard to get it. And for me, there are two things. There is my personal choice or decision to make. But that is not going to be the only thing people will consider or that I have to bear in mind. The other is also what the system that we operate in, of course, a system of people, the people having to decide. You know, sometimes it has become difficult to, it even becomes a sort of monotony or another time people looking for excuses when they say, oh, the people. Even when you do your own thing, you still claim you are doing it for the people, or that the people have asked you this, when actually you are the one asking them this. It happens. But I want to say it doesn't happen to everyone or in every case. So that means the situation will have to explain it, like in our case. So my personal view, maybe you were here or you followed what happened this last time. Actually, my view was not to continue. Again, for those who wish to be honest, it's an open secret. Whether it was in my party, which I interacted with and told them my view of what should happen next. Their view was completely on one side, my view was on the other side. So we reconciled that, and I agreed to listen to them. And I even said, but keep thinking about things differently. Next time, don't come up with the same argument. Maybe try to be, I have said this. So my position is, so then what you've said, therefore, is, I think, can be explained just in that context. But also don't forget that even if one may say, because I have even told the people, I have seen a book, there's a book, something accidental president or something. He's accidental president as well. So I think I might be fitting into that. I might be one of those. But when I am there, and and by the way, being accidental president, if I may repeat that or use that, does not mean that I wasn't something else. I was, before that, before I became president, I was a person who fought, you know, and I mean fought. It's not the fighting I'm talking about is the real fight. You don't know it has many versions, but I did the real one, where every day you are not sure of surviving to the next day. So it is that. So if you ever think, if anybody ever thinks that you go into that situation just as an adventure or as a hobby or something, then you are terribly mistaken. It means I also have a sense of responsibility to what I'm doing, of the outcomes and how I associate with all that. So I wasn't this as just an adventure, my brother. And then you can say, prove it. Yes, prove it is. I don't think when we were discussing, we were talking about a situation where we've been doing so badly in rebuilding the country, in representing these values that everyone talks about. In now these other all kinds of different fights that we can talk about, different from the other one. And we do it with a sense of that responsibility and with a sense that we are not the only ones who can do it. Just going back to the same story, the accidental president, in the fight I could have lost life like many others lost their lives. So I wasn't even fighting to be president, not at all. In fact, if the story had been that of fighting to be president, I wouldn't have participated. Yes, my story was about fighting to have a country that I didn't have, to contribute with others to making the change that needed to happen in our country. So if you want to be president, get ready. Next time, be prepared to participate. But you have to fight for it.
Thank you, Mr. President. We take one last question. The time you have generously given us is up. We'll take a question here.
Thank you. Thank you for having us here. My name is Janine Munyeshuri. Every time I come here, I came often in this place with friends visiting the museum. They are all very moved by our story, and mostly Africans, I may say. And I noticed that you did not want to use the word sacrifice, but everything here screams sacrifice. But I want to ask you a different question. What brought you the most joy on this journey?
Well, to be alive, to be on everyday basis immersed in these struggles to make the future of this country better. I feel so happy about it. Yes. You know, at first you fight as a sacrifice. When it has gone too long, you start enjoying the fight and start enjoying the sacrifice. So I'm enjoying being part of everyday fight to make this country better. Nothing makes me happier than this. Absolutely. In fact, not so long ago, I used to think and checked myself to make sure that sometimes I don't engage in fights that are not necessary. So I have to keep drawing myself back. Yes, because once you are used to that, sometimes you may pick on fights that are not necessary or that. So that's still part of the enjoyment I get. Yes.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, for your time. The conference has come to an end.
By the way, that's why I'll tell you a story, private story, which you don't know. I never have sleepless nights. When I get night to sleep, I really sleep. Meaning my mind is at peace. When I wake up, then if it's a fight, we fight it. When I go to sleep, I have my sleep.